Right. Welcome, welcome. Feel like I've got all my Christmas toys all at once here. We are working our way from the bottom of the body to the top of the body today. We are going foot to head. And the reason I've got all of these out is because we're going to use them for different aspects of some release work. So I've got this is my new edition, which is on my website. This is the small ball with ever so slight, you can just see gentle dimples. So they're not spiky, they're not aggressive like that one. They're for bigger muscles. This is for the bottom of your foot and working in between the metatarsals. So it's firm, but it's also just slightly dimpled. We've got our favorite green for getting into the deep hip flexors, external flexors, and then we've got the good old-fashioned roller. So we're going to be playing with all of these. Hopefully, even if you haven't got every single one, even if you've got a tennis ball, that would do the job. So I'm not saying you have to have all this array of toys, but if you've got a tennis ball, that would do the job. These are just a little bit more specific. It's like it's like the mechanic that's got every single spanner under the sun, as opposed to what you've got in your toolbox at home, sort of thing. So have a play, have a play. So we are going to go for the foot first, but before we go for the foot, we're going to do a little bit of priming, a little bit of assessing, see how that sit and reach feels today, and then we're into it, foot to head. So let's do the sit and reach first. How does that feel? What do you notice? Just take that out of my pocket. That's throwing my balance off with something in my pocket. So sit and reach is the one we always kind of default to. How does it feel? How's your single leg stand? How's the other single leg stand? If you like to run, how's your hop? Or something completely different. It might be a side bend or a twist, whatever metric makes the most sense to you and your body based on the sorts of things that you do. One final sit and reach. So hamstrings for me are the most noisy in that whole sit and reach. They are yelling at me based on what I did yesterday. And my right knee normally gives me grief, and it doesn't today, so that's a good sign. So let's do a little bit of priming. We'll set ourselves up. Get some length through that big sweep. Step and sweep. Spread the toes. Use the other foot to step. Side bend. Bring those feet in a little bit narrower. Lengthening down those sidelines, but mostly about tilting the head. And then our transverse a little bit wider again with the feet, and then rotation. Okay, we are primed. We are ready. The vestibular system is activated. So take your smallest ball and we are going to start working the plantar fascia on the feet. I think I'm going to drop the camera down for this one. Yeah, I will. Bear with me because it will give you a better perspective, I hope. So how's that? Look at that. So ball on the floor. I'm going to work. I'm going to probably standing up, sitting down. Let's go sitting down. All right. So the aim of the game here is to run the ball through all of the plantar fascia, so all of the fascia on the bottom of the foot, specifically in the gaps between the metatarsals. So the metatarsals are those main foot bones where the toes begin or end. They run back to the midfoot, which is when then they start hitting a whole bunch of other bones, which we won't go into now. So we're working the midfoot. Now we're working through the gaps between those bones. So if you push your finger into the gaps yourself, work your fingers down between the bones, that's where we're tracing with the ball. So we're going from the top all the way through. And in fact, you can probably push through to the base of the heel. So if you stop at about this point here, just behind the heel rather than to the back, so just stop right at the front of the calcaneus, which is the heel bone, that's a good point to then turn the ball over, roll it over a bone, and head back. Get to the end, move it slightly, head on back. So we're going through that tissue all the way till we get to the little toe. And then we're hanging on to the last one there, getting a bit wobbly for that little toe. So we've done the metatarsals. We're then going to go and do the arches. So we're going along the medial arch. That's the inside arch there. And working the muscle that works through here, which attaches to the big toe and keeps that big toe straight. I've got a bunion on this side. I want that to stay strong so that this big toe doesn't drift inwards any further. So activating it and keeping it strong helps that toe to stay straight and in line with the joint, which is where it should be, so that I can get full toe extension. So we're going up and down the medial arch a few times. Then we're going for the lateral arch, so the outside by the little toe. We're going up and down pretty much on the bone or just outside of the bone and all the soft tissue around it as well. So those are two of the three arches. Then our last arch is this transverse arch, which runs between the first and the fifth metatarsal. So we should have an arch here, which allows us to absorb more impact. So we should be able to fold that foot and we should be able to splay that foot. And that's that medial arch. We want everything to be active through there. So we're going to dig the heel in and we're going to rub laterally across there. And that can be a little bit interesting. I've got some nerves pinging in my foot there. And then just have a general play around. Instead of being as specific as that, you can just work into anywhere. Same on the other foot. I am going quite quickly because we've got a lot to get through. So same on the other foot. Now I'm working through the metatarsals again. So back to the beginning, into the fleshy part where we dug our fingers on the other foot. Just working backwards and forwards, moving across to a different one till we end up on the outside there. Then going for that medial arch, waking things up there if they're a little bit sleepy. Then the lateral arch, so down the little toe, and then digging the heel in and going for that transverse arch across between big toe and little toe. And because this ball's ever so slightly spiky, it's also slightly stimulating just through contact, and then you can choose how much pressure you put in. So that is a very, very brief and quite speedy version of how to roll your plantar fascia. Can be useful. A great way of freeing it up further up the chain as well. If you free up tightness in the foot, you will generally have more freedom up through the calves, the glutes, the lower back. It's all connected. We're moving on. We're moving on. We're going for the calf. Now I'm swapping ball for roller. I'm actually going to leave the camera down and I'm going to work on one calf and then the other. So you've got a good view there of one calf, 1 foot down so I can push in and off the ground. So we're going to go for the bottom half of the calf first. So I'm literally starting at the Achilles and I'm going to halfway back to the Achilles. So only halfway. And I'm only doing 5 passes. So there's 2, 3, 4, and 5. Cool. Now I'm going to go halfway and I'm going to roll side to side across the fibers, across the tissues. So we've gone with the fibers and now we're going across them. And about halfway. So the distance you were traveling between the bottom and the halfway point, you're halfway of that. And then we do 5 backwards and forwards there. Then we do the top half. So where we stopped, we continue again and we go all the way to the back of the knee and back to the halfway point. 5 of those. 2, 3, 4, 5. And then find halfway there, which is about there across the fibers. You don't want to spend too long doing this. Otherwise the brain goes, oh yeah, you're just rubbing, and there's no change, no input. So short, sharp input should help change things. And it's long enough, 5 passes is long enough to get a bit of a flush, but also a bit of a tone change as well. I am swapping sides. So starting at the bottom again, down to the Achilles, halfway. 4, 5, and halfway is there. Then I'm across the fibers. Good. Right, and then the top half. So up to there we go. Top half. 1, 2, right into the meaty bit. 3, 4, 5. Halfway is there. Across the fibers. Good. That's probably more than I should have done. That's us. All right. So we've done the feet, we've done the calves. I'm going to chuck the camera back up. We are doing the glutes. You can see from afar for this one. So green ball for me, whatever works for you in terms of whatever you've got. If it is just tennis ball, that's fine. This one's going into the hip. So we are down on the floor with that ball. You choose what side you're going for. We're doing both. So just ease yourself in, straighten that leg so it's relaxed. There's no tension through that leg. And you're starting to scour around between the sacrum, the outside hip bone, so the greater trochanter, and your ischium, which is your sit bone. And if you scour around there, you'll sort of work out that there's a sort of a triangle of space between those bony landmarks and lots of soft tissue. So to get to that hip bone, you've got to roll onto your side a little bit, then come back in to the sacrum, which is the side of your tailbone, if you like, and then we're down towards the sit bone, which is the bit you actually sit on. The way to remember it is, the name of it is the ischium, and a nickname for that is itchy bum. So that's a way of remembering it. If you're ever ever at a pub quiz and they ask what bone is the ischium, you can say it's the bit you sit on. It's the bottom of your pelvis. So I found something of interest. If you find some cordy bits, that's what we're interested in. We want to find it and release it. So find the hot spot, park the ball on it, breathe into it, sink into the hot spot. Can have a little break there, swap to the other side. Start searching. Okay. Now, I'm going to need a little bit of wall space for this next one. So we've done the hips. Hopefully you've had enough time to find what needs addressing in the hips. Just finding a little bit of wall space here. Something I didn't prepare earlier. So this is where the spiky ball comes in, and we're working through the lower back. So we are onto this one, and we're working this space here. So between the rib cage and the hips, all across here, you can go fairly high, you can go fairly low, so you're sort of touching the top of the glutes. So that whole space there is what we're doing. So an ideal situation is you're up against a wall, and you've got the ball trapped between yourself and the wall, and you're using the ball, you're rolling through. Ideally, same as we did with the foot, we're just stimulating the tissue. So that sensory system drives the nervous system. Sorry, the sensory system drives the motor system. So if you can wake muscles up, they are more likely to do their job, which is why you don't want to overstretch muscles before you start something, because that will inhibit them. So dynamic stretching, yes. Static stretching, no, before activity. And then after activity, static stretching, yes. Dynamic stretching, up to you. Not so necessary. So you should be getting some good stimulation around the spine into the space where the kidneys, roughly where the kidneys sit. You've got quadratus lumborum, which attaches from the 12th rib down the spine and onto the pelvis. They can get a little bit moany sometimes, especially if you sit a lot. So they can go to sleep, as can the glutes. And so therefore your lower back's exposed and not as well supported. So this is a great one. You can also add some stimulation to the front. So while you're rolling the ball backwards and forwards, if you strum the imaginary guitar with two hands, you are stimulating that same deep abdominal muscle that the ball is stimulating at the back, and hence switching on some of those deep stabilizers, deep core stabilizers. All right, so we're kind of halfway up the body. We've got a couple more areas to work on. We're going to go for the thoracic spine or the trunk, and we are going to go for the neck. And then that'll take us from foot to head. So hopefully that should, after doing that, should feel a bit more stimulated. Again, if you used a ball that's less spiky, that's okay. You can just get your fingers in here a little bit more and just use your own hands to stimulate. So we're looking at thoracic rotation. So we're just going to quickly assess that rotation before we decide what to do with it. So how are you going left? How are you going right? So must be sitting or kneeling. So you take the lower body out of it. Have you got 45 on both sides? Yeah, I've only just got 45 each side today. My favorite is the Feldenkrais Mobe drill. So I'm going to go straight into it. Use my roller to support my head. And the first thing we're going to do is make sure the lower body's locked, so knees crook. knees bent and fixed, stacked on top of each other. And side lying, I'm going to put our forehead, hands to forehead, and just do some salutes. So once you've done about 5, then it's hand on hand, and you're going to draw a bow. So we're just sliding the arm across, drawing a bow, just stopping when that elbow is at maximum angle. And we're going to do the same on the other side. So set yourself up, sideline, set the legs up, rest the head, do a few salutes. So hand on forehead. Once you've done about 5, stack the arms, draw the bow, make sure the head goes too, so the eyes are kind of following the top arm. If you've been a bit jammed up, then this will help free up that rotation ability through the ribs, hopefully. We'll see that in a moment. We'll reassess. All right, no time to waste. So that was pretty pronto, but let's see if that's made any difference. So back to that kneeling position or sitting. Go to the left. Oh, yeah. Go to the right. Yes. Probably gained a good 10, 15 degrees on both sides already. So for me, that's always a winner. A bit selfish because that one I know makes a difference, but hopefully the same for you. So it's not completely selfish. We're going to combine 2 into 1 here. So I was going to finish with full body 3D moves, but what we're going to do is we're going to put the 3D moves into the neck. So this is the one where the head stays still and the body does all the moving underneath the head. And by fixing your gaze, essentially you're moving the body under the head rather than moving the head on the body. So that would be a nod pattern, it would be a tilt pattern, and it would be a rotation pattern. So we're going to do the same thing with the head staying absolutely still. So I'm going to use the camera as my point of gaze where I'm going to be keeping my eyes. And I'm being deliberate with the high and the low sweep. So low means I'm lifting my chin up, and high means I'm tucking my chin. So this is the equivalent of a nod. And doing the little step. So I open up through the hips, but go high, go really low, really high, really low. And you'll feel that your entire body rib cage is moving underneath your head. So it's a nice way of getting some mobility in through that neck, up through the cervical spine with less force. You know, the body is doing the work. All the big muscles are doing the work. All the head has to do is stay absolutely still with your gaze fixed. So big sweeps forwards and back. You can swap the legs over 2. And that's that frontal, sorry, that's that sagittal plane. Now we go frontal. So come in a little bit narrow with the feet. And the tricky thing with this is, as the rib cage just darts off to the side, the head has to stay still. So this is the same as a head tilt. Your rib cage is swinging from side to side. My head is moving sideways, but it's also working really hard to stay upright as the body shifts, swinging underneath it. So one shoulder comes up to my head is the same as my head going down to my shoulder. So that cervical spine's getting lots of movements. All the tissue through there is getting the same thing, as if that head's tilting, bobbing side to side. Some good neck mobility. I can hear it clunking as I shift from side to side. It's designed for rotation more than this, but it still works. All right. And then we finish with some rotation. So wider stance. This time, same as we did at the beginning, priming, but head does not move this time. So eyes fixed, rotating. So the shoulders are turning in front of the body, reaching out far. So instead of following the eyes, so this doesn't help as much as following the hands, doesn't help the vestibular system in the same way because we're fixing it. What you do on a boat. So when the boat's bobbing, you look for the horizon so that that's the consistent, and that helps you with your seasickness. It's kind of what we're doing here, keeping an eye on something else while everything else moves underneath us. So we've got that rotation thing going on through the neck. So a lot less clicking sounds because those neck bones are pretty much flat. They're designed to spin on top of each other, particularly C1 and C2, the atlas and the axis. All right. And that's us from toe to head. Finito. All right, let's go down into our sit and reach. Then we'll do our postures. So how does it feel compared to the beginning? Oh, didn't do enough on the hamstrings. Single leg stand, that's pretty solid. Hop. Solid. They're all good. Sit and reach, not as significant, I would have to say, as normal other Fridays, because I think we've probably worked more through joints than we have tissue, but anyway, hopefully yours is feeling slightly better. Here we go. All right, so sit and reach done, cross-legged to go. Dropping down into our postures. Cross leg the other way. Sitting on feet. All right, toes under. Toes under into one up, one down. Switch. And then a deep squat. Drop down. Drop down into tailor, feet to feet. Okay, side saddle. Legs out to one side, body upright. And the same on the other side. Okay, long sit to finish. There we go. Done. See you Monday.